Don't let the chubby looks deceive you. The F3H2 is an agile demon packing a deadly punch if you make fun of its weight. Let's dive in and take a look at what this fighter is packing underneath that belly. Development for what would become the F3H2 began on September 30th, 1949, when the Navy contracted McDonnell to produce two prototypes of a new advanced swept-wing fighter. Richard Degon was tasked with designing the new aircraft and came up with a sleek design armed with four 20mm autocannons. Following the spooky theme established by previous McDonnell fighters, the name Demon was chosen for the new aircraft. The F3H1 would make its maiden flight on August 7, 1951. The prototype was severely underpowered and suffered major engine reliability problems. Despite repeated requests to change the engines, the Navy refused them all and stuck with the Westinghouse J-40. As development continued, the Navy also changed the requirements of the Demon from a day fighter to an all-weather interceptor. To accommodate this change, the AN APQ-50 was installed in a new radome underneath the nose. An order would soon be placed in late 1953 for 150 of the new F3H1Ns, but production was quickly halted due to 8 crashes resulting in 4 pilot deaths and 6 complete airframe losses after only 35 aircraft had been produced. After this series of crashes, the Navy finally gave in and agreed to swap the Westinghouse J-40 for the Allison J-71A2. While the new engine was being fitted, designers also took the time to extend the wing roots by 40 inches, installed a new AN APG-51A radar, and added the capability to fire the new AIM-9 air-to-air missile. The redesigned Demon would be redesignated to F3H2N. This version would still suffer from an underpowered engine, but at least the J-71 was more reliable than the J-40. After some experience, Demon crews noticed that applying hard aileron forces to induce high roll rates caused the wings to twist and warp. Rather than redesign the wing, spoilers were added on the top of the wings to spread the forces out across a larger area, and this solved the problem. The next version, the F3H2M, would swap the radar for an AN APQ-51A and the AIM-9s for the Sparrow 1s, an early beam-riding version of the Sparrow missile. The radar lacked a search function and thus could only be used during the daytime. Add to this the highly unreliable missile against anything that wasn't flying in a straight line, and it's no wonder the F3H2M would only see one deployment aboard a Navy ship. The final production version of the Demon, the F3H2, would swap the radar once more for the AN APQ-51B and regain the ability to use sidewinders, as well as upgrade to the more capable Sparrow 3 semi-active radar homing missile, later known as the AIM-7C. This radar had a search mode, and the more reliable Sparrows meant the Navy finally had the all-weather interceptor it wanted. The F3H2 would enter service with the fleet in 1959, and a total of 239 were built. Older F3H2Ns were also upgraded to the F3H2 standard. The F3H2 would serve as the Navy's main all-weather interceptor until 1964, when it was replaced by the F4B Phantom II. Though the game may claim the Demon is equipped with an AN APQ-50, the radar acts like an AN APQ-51B. The 50 was only an interceptor radar and didn't have the ability to guide Sparrows like the 51B. So I think this is just a case of Gaijin forgetting to update the model's name after they added the Sparrow to the Demon. This radar is basic from the other two I've covered. You get IFF, BVR, and ACM capabilities. The IFF can help when trying to lock up a target that's near friendlies, but the radar does tend to lock up friendlies in those situations anyway, so be careful if you're thinking of firing a Sparrow. BVR is a bit of a stretch. You will struggle to pick up targets over 15 miles away. It's best just to leave the radar at the default 11-mile range. You get an ACM mode, but it's pretty crap. I find it easier to narrow the search band on the radar and then lock them up manually than trying to rely on the ACM mode to lock up a target at close range. Being an early search radar, it's prone to ground clutter and chaff. Despite all this, for a 9.7 radar, it's pretty advanced. Most other 9.7 radars could only hope to have the capabilities the Demon's radar has. Now let's look at the weapons. The Demon is capable of carrying dumb bombs and unguided Mighty Mouse rocket pods. You lack any ballistics computer, so hitting with these is mainly going to be down to skill. The rocket pods are easy enough to use thanks to the 2 underbelly and 2 inner wing pylons being close to the nose. These are great for use against light pillboxes and other ground units late game. For bombs, you get a mix of old World War II era bombs and the newer Mark 80 series bombs. You do get a 3,000 pound bomb that can be fun to use in ground battles, and you can also use it to kill airfield campers by climbing up to 20,000 feet and then dive bombing and dropping it right on their heads. Moving on to missiles, the Demon gets access to 2, the AIM-9B at rank 3 and the AIM-7C at rank 4. The AIM-9Bs are your starter IR missiles. They have a short range, 10G overload, and a caged seeker head. This means you only get 1 lock circle and are unable to lead the missiles. You need to be within 1.5, preferably 1.2 miles before launching one of these if you want it to hit. Being 10G missiles, you're going to have a hard time hitting maneuvering targets, so focus slow enemies, distracted enemies, or enemies that are oblivious and flying in a straight line. The second missile you get access to is the AIM-7C. This was the 3rd version of this barrel and the first to use a semi-active radar homing guidance system. The first version was a beam riding missile, and the second version was a proposed active radar homing missile, but the radar was too big to fit into the missile's nose, so the project was dropped. The AIM-7C has the same 15G overload as the later D and E models, but with only a 15-mile max range, half that of the later 2 variants. If you've watched my other 2 videos, you should know by now not to take the max range at face value. The AIM-7C is no different, with the 15-mile range being a huge exaggeration. My typical launch range for the AIM-7C is between 3 and 5 miles. Being an AIM-7, you would think these are BVR missiles, but they're not. You need to think of these as extended within visual range missiles. There are 2 factors that feed into this. One is the reduced burn time of the AIM-7C's engine, making it rely heavily on the launching aircraft for energy. However, the launching aircraft is a second factor. Demon is not a supersonic aircraft and is underpowered. This means the plane won't give the missile much energy, and the missile won't be able to gain energy on its own. The missile isn't useless though, as it gives you the ability to engage targets in the front quarter. I find most of my success using this missile when coming in at a 20 to 40 degree offset from the target. This puts you on the edge of their screen or just inside of it. Then you launch at about 3.5 to 4.5 miles. This is very effective against targets that don't have an RWR to warn them of your attack. Your missile lacks a lot in performance and should be thought of as secondary weapons. Your main weapon in a Demon will be your guns, and they sure make up for the lackluster missiles. The Demon is armed with 4 20mm Browning Colt Mark 12 Mod 3 cannons, each capable of a fire rate of 1,000 rounds a minute. You have a total ammo count of 760 rounds, so this gives you a trigger time of 11.4 seconds. These guns have great velocity and pack a good punch. They're also capable of killing light pillboxes if you want to get a little more RP before heading back to the airfield after an air engagement winds down. The stock grind will be rough. At 9.7, the Demon is surrounded by Mach 1 and Mach 2 capable opponents. If you're gonna try and grind by killing players, I suggest going for the new 20mm mod first. Without this mod, you will have a shotgun instead of cannons. If you want to grind by killing ground units, go for the second rocket pod modification, as this gives you the 19-round rocket pods. Then I would still suggest going for the gun mods, as the guns can kill light pillboxes once they can shoot straight. I would suggest against base bombing, as the Demon doesn't carry enough bombs to really hurt a base until you get to the Mark 83 and Mark 84 modifications at rank 3. Let's check out the cockpit next. It's a little awkward at first, as you are offset to the left of center, though once you get used to it, the cockpit is very well laid out. All the instruments you need are placed on the center console right in front of you, and the letters and numbers are easily readable in VR, at least with the index. Layout of the forward canopy gives you excellent visibility around the nose. This makes carrier landings much easier, as you can peer around the side of the nose to maintain your glide slope. Got some decent visibility to the rear and sides as well, though you do have some large blind spots thanks to the large wings. Altogether, this is a fun cockpit to fly with in VR. Throughout its service life, the Demon always suffered from having an underpowered engine. It's no different in War Thunder. The Allison J71A2 is only capable of producing 4,590 kilograms of force dry and 6,330 kilograms of force in afterburner, and is unable to push the Demon past the sound barrier on its own. You're going to be out-climbed, out-accelerated, and outsped by almost everything you come up against. The Demon does make up for these shortcomings by being very maneuverable. You'll generally have one or two good energy turns that allow you to get behind a Draken or a MiG-21 before you bleed your speed. Then using your excellent combat flaps that can be deployed at 450 knots without ripping, as well as the takeoff flaps, you can maneuver into a firing position. Though if you get jumped during one of these fights, you're as good as dead. The Demon lacks flares, and when faced with 30G R60s and magic missiles, your best defense is to not have these shot at you in the first place. Typically, I will start with a 2 AIM-7 and 2 AIM-9 loadout. After taking off, I will climb at 15 degrees directly towards the AO. The Demon is so slow that you won't be the first of your team to reach the middle, and if you decided to side climb, you'd just be taking yourself out of the action for a long time. Your initial target should be enemy attackers that have climbed above your teammates. Use your sparrows to disrupt them and force them down low. You're unlikely to get a kill, but if you do, we'll take it, as that's one less enemy we have to worry about. After that, look for the closest / biggest furball and go get yourself stuck in there. You don't have the missiles or the speed to perform the high speed slashing attacks I usually suggest, so you're going to have to get down and dirty with your guns. If the opportunity shows itself, don't be afraid to use an AIM-9B in a dogfight. After the main fight is over, try to kill any AI attackers with whatever you have left before heading to rearm. Not only does this take away tickets from the enemy team, but it also prevents their planes from killing your ground units and reducing your tickets. Depending on what's left at the end of the game, you can bring out either a multi-role air-to-ground loadout, or go back for pure air-to-air. Now it's time for some pros, cons, and then my final verdict. The guns are great on the Demon. These are going to be your primary weapon, and if you can learn to use them, you're going to have a lot of fun with this aircraft. The Demon has very good maneuverability for her BR. Once you're behind something, you can comfortably stay behind them no problem. Though you will bleed speed quickly after the first couple of turns and struggle to get it back afterwards. It is a joy to fly in VR. The cockpit has lots of visibility, and the instruments are easy to read and laid out right in front of you. As for cons, the biggest downside of the Demon is definitely the engine. You just can't keep up with most opponents at your BR bracket in any kind of foot race. The missiles leave a lot to be desired from a subsonic jet and a supersonic tier. They can definitely net you some kills, but have strict employment parameters. Thankfully, your guns make up for where these missiles fall short. Being a 9.7 jet puts you into a really tough BR bracket. You'll see a lot of up tiers into 10.0 and 10.3, where you'll be facing opponents with Magics and R60s. There really isn't anything you can do if one of these is fired at you. Even if you aren't up tiered, you're surrounded by a lot of supersonic jets that can easily stay out of reach if they want to. This last one really isn't a knock on the aircraft, it's more just a pet peeve with the map rotation. From my experience, all the maps with carriers have been removed from the rotation, which sucks because landing on carriers is fun, and they also give you a really fast turnaround time. All in all, the F3H2 is a subsonic gunfighter in a supersonic missile thunder meta. This is one of those hard planes to balance with the current BR ceiling. It struggles against planes with high-performance missiles and supersonic capabilities, but if you down-tier it, it'll proceed to stomp on MiG-17s and light F-Series Sabres. This plane would greatly benefit from further BR decompression. I'd still recommend playing the Demon at least, or at least giving it a shot. She can be very fun and rewarding to fly. Plus, I just love the look of the F3H2. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. See y'all around.